Málaga Radio.
Freshly squeezed.
The juice on all the daily events along the coast.
With just a little bit of zest.
Hello and welcome to the Weekly Diary from Málaga Radio. I'm Carmen.
And I'm Baptiste. This is our weekly guide to what is happening around Málaga and the Costa del Sol. What is worth traveling for, what is worth checking if you are nearby, and how to plan your week without trying to do absolutely everything.
And if this is your first time with us, welcome. You might have found this podcast because you are traveling to Málaga, thinking about the Costa del Sol, already here on holiday, or just trying to understand what is happening this week. That is exactly what the Weekly Diary is for.
This week, we are looking at Monday the 6th to Sunday the 12th of July, and this is a very high summer week. The coast is busy, the evenings are full, the big festivals are arriving, and the sensible traveler needs to understand one thing before anything else. In July, the day works differently.
Morning for movement, afternoon for recovery, evening for the Costa del Sol.
Exactly. Do not fight the afternoon sun. Use it wisely. A long lunch is not wasted time. A siesta is logic rather than laziness. And many of the best things this week happen after the heat has softened.
Before we get into the main diary, two quick Málaga Radio notes. First, our Gibraltar story continues in a separate podcast. Gibraltar Reinvented, Beyond Border Queues and Bargains.
Because Gibraltar is changing. The old picture was border queues, quick shopping, duty-free bargains, and a few hours on the rock. But the visitor story is moving on. Easier land movement, a weaker bargain hunt identity, and a bigger focus on heritage, nature, caves, tunnels, marinas, food, and short breaks.
So if Gibraltar is still just monkeys and a shopping run in your mind, that podcast is worth hearing. And second, this week's biggest live story is further east in Torre del Mar.
Yes, Weekend Beach Festival 2026 is so big that we have made it its own Málaga Radio special. Torre del Mar goes full volume. That special goes into the lineup, the weaker culture, the camping, the transport, the heat, the safety advice, and what happens when a beach town becomes a festival city for 3 nights.
So in this weekly diary, we will not repeat the full weekend beach guide. We will point you to the special, then keep this episode focused on the whole week. Festivals, culture, food, music, nightlife, sport, and outdoor ideas across Málaga and the Costa del Sol.
And for daily reminders, travel notes, weather, traffic, and selected events, listen to Freshly Squeezed on Málaga Radio every morning from 8 to 11. The diary helps you plan the week. Freshly Squeezed helps you use the day.
And the place to check event pages, links, locations, and latest details is malagaradio.net.
So this week, a major beach festival in Torre del Mar, a big traditional fair in Estepona, summer nights in museums and historic spaces, rooftop food, vineyard escapes, urban concerts, night trails, water adventures, and a lot of reasons to plan around the heat.
Let's start with festivals and traditions, because this week, the Costa del Sol gives us 2 very different versions of summer celebration. One loud and fairground bright in Estepona, and one candlelit, historic, and intimate in the Axarquia Hills.
Málaga Radio.
So let's start with festivals and traditions, because this week gives us 3 very different versions of summer celebration. While Torre del Mar goes full volume with Weekend Beach, the rest of the province is not exactly quiet. Estepona has the big traditional fairground week. Cútar has a smaller historic night in the Axarquia Hills. And along the coast, there is that early build-up towards Virgen del Carmen, when fishing districts and seaside communities start preparing for one of the most important maritime traditions of the summer.
Exactly. And that is a useful way to think about the week. Not one festival mood, but several. If you want lights, horses, music, families, late nights, and a proper Andalusian feria, Estepona is the big traditional anchor. If you want something more intimate, historic, and atmospheric, Cútar is the one to look at. And if you are staying in Málaga City or one of the coastal neighborhoods, the Virgen del Carmen build-up is worth noticing even before the main sea processions arrive later in July.
So let's start in Estepona, because this is the big one.
Yes, the Feria y Fiestas Mayores de Estepona runs from Tuesday the 7th to Sunday the 12th of July. It is the town's main summer fair, and it works in that classic Andalusian way. By day, the atmosphere is around the town center with color, music, horses, food, and people moving through the streets. By night, the focus shifts towards the Recinto Ferial, the fairground with rides, casetas, concerts, lights, and that late summer energy.
That day and night split is so important for visitors to understand, because a feria is not just one thing, is it? You can go in the daytime and have one kind of experience experience than go again at night and feel like you are in a completely different version of the same celebration.
Exactly. The day fair is more about streets, families, tradition, dresses, horses, food, and local rhythm. The night fair is brighter, louder, later, and more fairground focused. So for visitors, Estepona is a good feria choice because it gives you the full summer fair feeling without necessarily being as overwhelming as Malaga Feria later in August.
So who is Estepona Feria good for?
Good for families, couples, feria first-timers, people staying on the western Costa del Sol, and anyone who wants to see a proper Andalusian summer fair in a coastal town. If you are in Marbella, Manilva, Casares, San Pedro, Sotogrande, or Estepona itself, this is very much on your radar, and it is worth traveling for if you want the feria experience, horses, food, music, fairground lights, local pride, and late-night atmosphere.
But with the usual summer advice, do not try to do the whole thing at the hottest point of the day.
Exactly. Use the rhythm properly. Go later if you want the fairground energy. Check the program before you travel because the highlights change by day. And if you are going with children, look at the family timings and the fairground plan before you arrive.
And also, give yourself time. Feria is not something you rush through in 20 minutes.
No, it is something you enter gradually. Walk, listen, look at what locals are doing, find the food, follow the music, and do not worry if you do not understand every tradition immediately. That is part of the point.
From big and bright in Estepona, we go somewhere much smaller and more atmospheric. La Noche Nazarí in Cútar.
Yes, La Noche Nazarí takes place on Saturday, the 11th of July in Cútar, one of the white villages of the Axarquia. And this is a completely different kind of summer evening. Instead of a big coastal fairground, you have a village leaning into its Andalusi and Sephardic past with historic streets, theatrical roots, Moorish-inspired food, music, storytelling, and a much more intimate nighttime atmosphere.
This is the one that sounds like a film scene. A small white village, the evening cooling down, people moving through narrow streets, music echoing off old walls, food, history, and that feeling that you have left the beach world behind for a few hours.
That is the appeal. Cútar is not the easiest just pop-along option if you are staying far away because it is inland and you need to think about transport. But for the right visitor, that is exactly why it is special. It is for people who like villages, history, food culture, evening atmosphere, and something that feels much less commercial than the bigger coastal events.
So this is not the same kind of decision as Estepona. Estepona is big, open, easy to understand. Cútar asks you to make a little more effort, but gives you something more unusual.
Exactly, and that is why it is a strong pick. If you are staying in the Axarquia, around Vélez Málaga, Torre del Mar, Rincón de la Victoria, Nerca, Torox, or inland nearby, it is especially worth checking. If you are coming from further away, check the event details, timing, and transport carefully before deciding. This is not one to improvise at the last minute.
And it is also a good reminder that summer traditions here are not only beach and fireworks. Sometimes they are food, memory, village streets, and a story that goes back much further than tourism.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third thread this week, the coast preparing for Virgen del Carmen.
Now, the big sea processions are not quite this week yet, but you can already feel the buildup.
Yes, Virgen del Carmen is one of the major maritime traditions along this coast, especially in fishing communities. The main processions come later in July, but in the days before, you often see churches, brotherhoods, neighborhood groups, and coastal districts preparing. In Malaga City, places like Stella Maris and El Perchel have that maritime devotion very close to the surface. And in eastern fishing districts like El Palo and Pedregalejo, the relationship between the sea, the boats, the families, and the Virgin is part of the local identity.
This is where visitors need a slightly different attitude. You are not going as if it is a show put on for tourists. You are noticing a tradition that belongs to the community.
Exactly. Observe respectfully. Dress appropriately. If you are entering churches, do not block people who are taking part. And understand that for many local families, Virgen del Carmen is not just a pretty procession by the sea. It is protection, memory, fishing heritage, family identity, and gratitude.
I love that this week gives us the preparation, not just the main event, because sometimes seeing a town get ready tells you as much as the day itself.
Very true. And if you are staying on the coast this week, especially in Malaga City or the older fishing neighborhoods, keep an eye out. You may see flowers, church activity, processional preparations, local posters, or small moments that point toward what is coming.
So those are the three main festival stories. Estepona for the big feria, Cútar for the historic village night, and Virgen del Carmen for the coast preparing its maritime traditions. But there are a couple more on our radar.
Yes. First, Fiestas de San Benito Abad in Campillos on the 10th and 11th of July. That is more of an inland local community celebration. built around the town's patron saint, with religious acts, local pride, sports, and evening events. It is not a major tourist headline, but if you are nearby, it is worth a look for a more local festival atmosphere.
And then Feria de Benejarafe from the 10th to the 13th of July. That one is useful for the eastern coast, especially if you are around Vélez, Málaga, Torre del Mar, Rincón, Xilches, or Benejarafe itself.
Exactly. Benejarafe connects nicely with the maritime summer rhythm because it is a coastal fair linked to Virgen del Carmen traditions. Expect a local beachside fair feel, family activities, music, food, and that mix of neighborhood celebration and seaside summer evening. Again, worth a look if you are nearby.
And just to avoid confusion, Antequera Light Fest is not one we are pushing this week. That belongs on next week's radar.
Correct. The main Antequera Light Fest dates fall later in July, so we are leaving that for next week. This week, stay focused on Estepona, Cútar, the Carmen buildup, Campillos, and Benejarafe.
So if you are choosing from festivals and traditions this week, the question is simple. Do you want the big fairground version of summer? Go west to Estepona. Do you want the intimate historic village version? Look inland to Cútar. Do you want to understand the coast preparing for one of its great maritime traditions? Watch the fishing districts and Carmen churches.
And if something is close to where you are staying, do not dismiss the smaller events. Sometimes the best holiday memory is not the biggest event on the list. It is the one you nearly missed 10 minutes from where you were having dinner.
Exactly. Check malagaradio.net for the event pages, links, locations, and latest details.
After the break, we move from festivals and traditions into culture and exhibitions with museum escapes, Ronda after dark, historic summer concerts, and a few cool places to hide from the July afternoon.
This is the weekly diary from Málaga Radio.
Málaga Radio.
If festivals and traditions take us into streets, fairs, and villages, culture gives us the other summer strategy. When July gets serious, you do not always need to keep pushing through the heat. Sometimes the clever move is to step inside a museum, slow the day down, and come back out when the evening starts to breathe again.
Exactly. And Malaga City is very strong for that this week. If you are staying in or near the city, the museums are not just a rainy day plan because there is no rain. They are a heat-smart plan. You can use the middle of the day for Picasso, Thyssen, Mucac, the Museo Russo, La Termica, or one of the city's major exhibition spaces. Then save the evening for food, music, a walk by the port, or one of the night events.
So this is the culture version of summer pacing. Morning outside, afternoon in the galleries, evening back out into the city.
Yes, and there is plenty to work with. At the Museo Picasso Málaga, Joana Vasconcelos, Transfiguración is the big contemporary exhibition with large sculptural and installation work inside the historic Palacio de Buenavista. At the Museo Carmen Thyssen, you have Los Ribalta y el Barroco Naturalista, which is a much more dramatic classical Spanish painting experience, and Manuel Franquelo, El Lenguaje de las Cosas, which is quieter, slower, and more intimate.
That is a nice contrast. One museum can give you monumental contemporary work, another can give you shadow, devotion, detail, and stillness.
Exactly. And then Mucac La Coracha is very interesting this week. If you like contemporary ideas, there is Tejiendo Historias, looking at textile art, memory, and feminist critique. Arquitectura Sin Centro, built around architectural models and design thinking. And Verónica Ruth Frias, Mi Porción del Pastel, which is a short but sharp video work.
So Mucac is more for people who want something thoughtful, maybe a little more challenging.
Yes, and over at the Museo Russo in the Tabacalera area, Valeri Katsuba, Realismo Romantico II, gives you photography, bodies, movement, labor, and elegance in that grand old industrial setting. So between the center, La Coracha, Tabacalera, and La Termica, you can build a very good Malaga culture day without spending the whole afternoon melting in the street.
And this is where we should give a small tourist tip. If you are planning a proper Malaga Museum Day, check the Malaga Pass before you start buying individual tickets. It will not suit everyone, but if you are doing several museums or monuments in a short stay, it may save time and money.
Exactly. Check what is currently included before you buy because passes and conditions can change. But if your plan is Picasso, Thyssen, maybe the Alcazaba, Gibralfaro, Mucac, or other city attractions, it is worth checking. The main point is simple. Do not drift through a July afternoon with no plan. Use the museums properly.
And if Weekend Beach is the full volume version of July, this is the quieter version of the same week. Still memorable, just with air conditioning and better lighting.
Very good. Now, outside Malaga City, the big culture night this week is Ronda Noche in Blanco on Friday, the 10th of July.
That one sounds beautiful. Ronda is already dramatic in daylight, with the cliffs, the bridge, the old streets, and the views. But Ronda after dark, with cultural events spread through the town, feels like a very different kind of night out.
It is. Noche en Blanco is a town-wide cultural evening, usually running from around 8 in the evening to midnight, with monuments, museums, plazas, performances, music, theater, dance, and free cultural activity across the historic center. For visitors, the appeal is that you are not just walking around Ronda, you are seeing the town activated after dark.
That is a good phrase, activated after dark, because a lot of people visit Ronda as a daytime excursion. They arrive, see the bridge, take the photo, have lunch, and leave.
Exactly. But this is a reason to experience Ronda differently. The temperature is softer, the streets feel more atmospheric, the views change, and the cultural program gives you a reason to move through the town slowly. It is worth considering if you are already in Ronda, staying inland, or happy to plan a proper evening trip.
But not one to do casually without thinking about the journey back.
Correct. Ronda is not a quick hop from every part of the coast. If you are traveling from Malaga City, Marbella, Estepona, or further along the Costa del Sol, check the route, parking, public transport, and return plan before you commit. A beautiful cultural night is much better when you know how you are getting home.
So Ronda is worth traveling for, but only with a proper plan.
Exactly. Then back in Malaga City, there is another strong thread this week: historic spaces being used after dark. And this is one of the lovely things about summer culture here. The city does not only move indoors, it also takes places that are already special and uses them at night.
You mean the Alcazaba, Gibralfaro, old theaters, places with history already built in?
Yes. Julio Musical 2026 is active this week with concerts in places like the Alcazaba and Castillo de Gibralfaro. That gives visitors a very different way to experience those monuments, not just as daytime sightseeing stops, but as evening performance spaces.
That is exactly the kind of thing I would choose on a hot week. You avoid the hardest sun, you still get the history, and you get music with the city around you.
Yes, but check the access details. Historic venues can have specific entrances, shuttle arrangements, stairs, uneven surfaces, or limited access points. So do not assume it works like a normal theater. Check the event page before traveling.
And then there is the outdoor cinema at the English Cemetery.
Yes, Cine Abierto has a Gothic cinema night at the historic English Cemetery on Thursday, the 9th of July. That is not a standard film setting. The English Cemetery is one of Malaga's most atmospheric historic spaces, and a night screening there has a very particular mood.
That is definitely one for people who like unusual cultural settings. Not just we watched a film, but we watched a film in a historic cemetery under the night sky.
Exactly. And then for theater, The Phantom of the Opera continues at Teatro Cervantes during the week. That gives visitors another option, classic musical drama inside Malaga's main historic theater. So if you want a polished evening rather than a street festival or beach club, that is one to check.
I like how different the options are. A museum afternoon, Ronda after dark, music in a fortress, cinema in a cemetery, Phantom in the theater. That is a lot of culture, but it does not all feel the same.
And that is the point. Culture this week is not just go to a museum. It is about choosing the temperature, the mood, and the setting that fits your day. If you are tired from the sun, go indoors. If you want a night excursion, look at Ronda. If you want Malaga City after dark, check the historic venues.
And we have a few more on our radar.
Yes, the Westminster Boys Choir performs on Wednesday, the 8th of July at the Sala Fundación Unicaja Maria Cristina, which is a beautiful central venue and a strong option for classical choral music. There is also the 101 Music Festival Cudeca Gala on Thursday, the 9th of July at the Plaza de Toros La Malagueta, combining performance with a charity purpose. And for a free or lower key contemporary art option, Ryan Schneider, Murmuración at La Térmica is worth checking, especially if you are on the west side of Malaga City or want something away from the historic center.
So the culture advice this week is simple. Do not leave culture as an afterthought. Use it to shape the day.
Exactly. A museum can save a hot afternoon. A historic concert can make a summer night feel special. And a cultural event in a town like Ronda can turn a normal day trip into a proper evening memory.
Check malagaradio.net for event pages, links, locations, and latest details.
After the break, we move from culture into food and hospitality with street pop-ups, feria food, Moorish flavors in Cútar, rooftops, vineyards, beer tours, wine tastings, and the very important question of how to eat properly in July.
This is the weekly diary from Málaga Radio.
Málaga Radio.
Now we move into food and hospitality. And this week, the hidden rule is simple. In July, food is not just where you eat. It is how you survive the day.
Exactly. A good food plan changes everything. It gives you shade, recovery, water, timing, energy, and a reason not to make terrible decisions at 5 in the afternoon. And this week, the Costa del Sol gives us several versions of that. Malaga City using food as culture, Estepona Marbella and Cútar using food as tradition, and places like Marbella and Ronda turning dinner into a proper summer experience.
So we are not just saying, here are some restaurants. We are saying, think about when you eat, where you eat, and what kind of day you are trying to have.
Exactly. The first big food story is Malaga city itself, because Malaga is leaning into its role as a gastronomic capital. This week, the city has food culture moving through plazas, markets, museums, taverns, and breweries. So if you are in Malaga, do not treat food as something that happens only after the sightseeing. Food can be part of the sightseeing.
That is very Malaga. You go to a museum, you walk through the old center, you stop for something cold, you find a market, you try a local wine, and suddenly the food is not separate from the city. It is how you understand the city.
Exactly. For a daytime food stop, Atarazanas market is still one of the obvious places to start. It gives you that busy, local, sensory Malaga feeling. Fresh produce, seafood, people standing at counters, market noise, quick plates, and the sense that the city is feeding itself, not just performing for visitors.
And that is a good morning or lunch idea, not a late night plan.
Correct. Markets have their own rhythm. Go earlier, enjoy the movement, and do not expect it to behave like a restaurant at 10 o'clock at night. Then, for old Malaga wine culture, Antigua Casa de Guardia is one of those places that tells a story immediately. Barrels, sweet local wines, vermouth, simple plates, and that old tavern feeling where you understand very quickly that Malaga had a food and wine identity long before modern tourism discovered it.
That is the sort of place where visitors should slow down and look around, not just order quickly and leave.
Yes, and order with curiosity. If you do not know the wines, ask. Try a small glass, try something local, and remember that these traditional places are often more about rhythm than speed.
And then there are the city food pop-ups and gastronomic capital activity.
Yes, across the city, Malaga's gastronomic capital programming means food can appear as public culture, pop-ups, tastings, local ingredients, and food experiences that connect the city to the province around it. So the message for visitors is, keep your eyes open. Food this week may not only be inside restaurants, it may be in plazas, museum courtyards, markets, breweries, wine spaces, and special events.
Which brings us nicely back to the festivals, because some of the most interesting food this week is not restaurant food at all. It is festival food, memory food, community food.
Exactly. And the strongest example is La Noche Nazarí in Cútar. We mentioned it in festivals and traditions, but from a food point of view, it deserves another look. This is not just a village evening with music. Food is part of the historical storytelling. You have Moorish Andalusian flavors, workshops around dishes like tabbouleh and couscous, an Al-Andalus-inspired dinner atmosphere, and Sephardic Andalusian music shaping the evening.
That is a completely different food mood from a beach restaurant. It feels like food as a bridge to the past.
That is exactly the appeal. If you are interested in food culture, Cútar is not just somewhere to eat, it is a way to taste a story. But again, it needs planning. Small village, evening event, inland location, transport to think about. Do not treat it like a casual restaurant booking in the old town.
And then Estepona gives us the feria version of food.
Yes, at Feria y Fiestas Mayores de Estepona, food is part of the fair rhythm. Tapas, fairground eating, family meals, community moments, and on Sunday the 12th, a traditional culinary competition. That is the kind of food experience where you are not necessarily chasing elegance. You are joining the celebration.
Feria food is not quiet food. It comes with music, children, lights, people walking past, someone you do not know singing nearby, and probably a very late night.
Exactly, and that is why it works. It belongs to the atmosphere. So for visitors, Estepona is good if you want a broad, accessible food and fair experience. Cútar is better if you want something smaller, historic, and more unusual. Different appetite, different evening.
Now, for people who want the more polished summer dining side, this week has plenty.
It does. And this is where July timing becomes very important. The clever food choices this week happen either in the morning over a long shaded lunch or after the sun starts to drop. Do not underestimate the value of a proper long lunch. A long lunch is not wasted time in July. It is a recovery system.
That needs to go on a Málaga Radio t-shirt.
Probably. For a long lunch with a more polished feel, Saltao Lakeside Fusion in Marbella is one to look at, especially if you want something away from the beach pressure. It has that relaxed terrace lakeside feeling with Peruvian Mediterranean influence and cocktails that suit a slow afternoon.
So that is not Russian rush-out food. That is, we are making lunch part of the day.
Exactly. Then for evening views, Noches de Hayaca on the rooftop at Marbella is a very summer idea. Latin American and Mediterranean flavors, show cooking, cocktails, and that rooftop sunset feeling. It is very much an after the heat choice.
That is the kind of place you choose when you want the evening itself to be the event.
Yes. And if you want to escape the coast completely, the Sunset Vineyard experience at La Melonera near Ronda gives you a different kind of summer cooling. Higher altitude, vineyards, local products, mountain air, and a slower golden hour rhythm.
That sounds very appealing in a hot week. Sometimes the best coastal decision is to leave the coast for a few hours.
Exactly. And for a more theatrical Marbella night, Mamzelle is also on the radar with dinner show energy, performance, and high-end hospitality. That is not casual dining. That is a full evening out.
So the food choices this week really depend on your energy. Market morning, feria food, village history, long lunch, rooftop sunset, vineyard escape, dinner show. That is a lot of different ways to eat.
And we should add one practical weekend beach note here. If you are doing Weekend Beach Festival in Torre del Mar, do not make food an afterthought. A proper meal before a long festival night may be the difference between enjoying the sunrise and merely surviving it.
That is very true. Do not arrive at a festival tired, sunburned, and running only on crisps and optimism.
Exactly. Eat properly, hydrate early, and remember that festival nights are long. Food is part of the plan, not an interruption to the fun.
And what else is on our food radar this week?
A few good options. Sábados de Vino en el Museo at the Málaga Wine Museum is on Saturday the 11th. A useful choice if you want a structured local wine tasting in the city. La Fábrica Cruzcampo in Soho is active from Thursday to Sunday, good for craft beer, casual food, and a more urban Malaga evening. The Cerveza Victoria Factory tour is also worth checking on the 7th, 8th, 10th, and 11th, especially if you like brewery visits and want something different from the beach.
And Fuengirola?
Sakanaya in Fuengirola is on the radar for Japanese live cold dining, combining sushi precision with grilled Mediterranean influence. And inland, the Tomate Huevo Toro harvest experiences around Alhaurín el Grande and Coín are worth noting if you are interested in local produce, farm visits, and gazpacho tastings.
I like that one because it reminds people that food here does not begin on the plate. It begins in the fields, the valleys, the markets, and the producers.
Exactly. And that is the wider point this week. If you only eat beside the most obvious tourist routes, you will still eat well. But if you follow food inland into markets, wine spaces, village events, and local producers, the province becomes much more interesting.
So the food and hospitality advice is simple. Eat with the heat, not against it.
Yes, market earlier. Long lunch if you need recovery. Rooftops and terraces later. Book properly for popular places. And if you are traveling to a food event in a village or vineyard, check the route before you fall in love with the idea.
Check malagaradio.net for event pages, links, locations, and latest details.
After the break, we move into music and nightlife. And this week, that means the big one in Torre del Mar, luxury concert nights in Marbella, urban energy in Fuengirola, electronic sessions, jazz in the park, and a few smaller city nights if you do not want the full festival machine.
This is the weekly diary from Málaga Radio.
Málaga Radio.
Now we move into music and nightlife, and this is the chapter where week 28 really starts to feel like high summer, because this is not a quiet music week. This is beach festivals, quarry concerts, Castle Park urban nights, open-air arenas, jazz in the park, underground electronic sessions, and late-night Malaga city options.
Exactly. And we should start with the obvious one because the biggest music story of the week is Weekend Beach Festival 2026 in Torre del Mar from Thursday the 9th to Saturday the 11th of July. But we are not going to repeat the full guide here because we have made that its own Malaga Radio special. Weekend Beach Festival 2026, Torre del Mar goes full volume.
That special goes properly into the lineup, the weaker culture, the camping, the transport, the heat, the safety advice, and what happens when Torre del Mar becomes a festival city for 3 nights. So in this diary, the short version is this. If you want the full volume version of July, Weekend Beach is the major eastern Costa del Sol anchor.
Yes, Thursday brings the opening night energy with Medina, Azahara, La Pegatina, and Boyko. Friday moves into big pop and urban names, including David Bisbal, Ana Mena, Morad, and De La Fuente. And Saturday has the big closing push with Mike Towers, Abraham Mateo, Mego de Oz, Kiba, Boris Brecha, Patrick Mason, and Bia.
So this is not worth a look if you are nearby. This is worth planning around if that is your kind of night.
Exactly, but only if it really is your kind of night. Weekend Beach means crowds, long hours, late transport, noise, heat planning, and a town under pressure. For festival people, brilliant. For quiet beach travelers, maybe understand it from a distance.
And that is why the special exists. Now, if Weekend Beach is the big Eastern Coast festival, Marbella has a very different kind of music week.
Yes, and the contrast is very useful. In Marbella, Starlite Occident is active this week at the Cantera de Nagueles, the quarry above the Golden Mile. That is a completely different atmosphere from Weekend Beach. Less campsite and sand, more boutique concert, dinner, VIP, red carpet energy, and dramatic stone walls around the stage.
So if Torre del Mar is full volume full-volume beach festival, Starlite is the dressed-up version of summer music.
Exactly. And this week, Starlite has a very strong run. Grupo Frontera on Monday the 6th, Maroon 5 on Tuesday the 7th, Deep Purple on Thursday the 9th, Rick Astley on Friday the 10th, and Elvis Crespo on Saturday the 11th.
That is quite a spread. Latin, pop rock, classic rock, nostalgia, merengue.
Yes, and that is the Starlite model. Different audiences on different nights, all within the same high-end venue. For visitors staying around Marbella, Puerto Banús, Nagueles, the Golden Mile, or Nueva Andalucia, this is one of the easiest premium nightlife choices of the week, provided tickets and transport are planned.
Transport again.
Always transport. The quarry setting is beautiful, but it also means you should not treat arrival and exit casually. Check official access, parking, taxis, shuttle options if available, and give yourself time.
So Weekend Beach is the big festival world. Starlite is the boutique quarry world. What about Marenostrum in Fuengirola?
This week, the big Marenostrum event is Urban Paradise on Saturday the 11th of July at Marenostrum Fuengirola by Sohail Castle. This is a high-energy Latin, urban and reggaeton festival with names including Young Miko and Bale.
That venue is one of those places where the setting does a lot of work. You have the sea, the castle, the hillside, the evening light.
Exactly. Marenostrum is very good at turning a concert into a coastal experience. Urban Paradise is likely to draw a younger crowd, heavy urban and Latin energy, and that day into night movement. Gates open in the late afternoon, so again, think heat, water, transport, and the fact that Fuengirola will be busy around the event.
And if someone is choosing between Weekend Beach and Urban Paradise?
They are not quite the same decision. Weekend Beach is a 3-day multi-stage festival in Torre del Mar. Urban Paradise is a 1-day high-profile urban festival in Fuengirola. If you want the full festival immersion, Weekend Beach. If you want a more focused urban music night in a spectacular coastal venue, Urban Paradise.
That is clear. And Marbella Arena also has a strong run this week.
Yes. Marbella Arena in Puerto Banús has 3 very different nights from Thursday to Saturday. Faithless on Thursday the 9th, Two Door Cinema Club on Friday the 10th, Chris Tucci on Saturday the 11th.
That is another good example of choosing by mood. Faithless is electronic nostalgia and big anthems. Two Door Cinema Club is indie rock, very international, very summer guitar energy. Chris Tucci is more house and techno, more club focused.
Exactly. And Marbella Arena is useful because it sits close to Puerto Banús and Nueva Andalucia nightlife. So for visitors who want to combine dinner, a concert, and late night Marbella, it can work very well. But again, plan the exit. A big event ending near Puerto Banús can put pressure on taxis and roads.
So far, this music chapter has been big event, big event, big event. Is there anything softer?
Yes, and we should mention Summer Jazz Festival Torremolinos, opening on Monday the 6th of July at Parque de la Bateria. This is a free open-air jazz option with the Ulyaku Big Band. It is a very different kind of evening, relaxed, outdoor, family-friendly, and much less intense than the big coastal festivals.
That sounds like the perfect reminder that nightlife does not have to mean chaos. Sometimes it is a park, a summer evening, brass, rhythm, and people sitting under the night sky.
Exactly. For people staying around Torremolinos, Benalmádena, or Malaga West, it is worth a look if you are nearby. And because it is free and outdoors, check timing, seating, transport, and whether you want to bring something comfortable for the park.
And Malaga City has its own smaller night choices too.
Yes. In Malaga City, Guitarricadelafuente plays at Plaza de Toros La Malagueta on Saturday the 11th. That is a strong pick if you want contemporary Spanish indie folk with flamenco-rooted atmosphere in a historic open-air setting.
That feels like the romantic Malaga City music choice.
Very much. And then the city also has smaller late-night options. ZZ Pub has live music this week, including Motown and Soul on Monday, and El Trio del Saco with a jam session on Thursday. Teatro Club has midweek Latin and reggaeton nightlife, and Cosa Nuestra has Luar La El on Wednesday for people following Latin urban and drill sounds.
Those are the worth a look if you are nearby choices. Not necessarily something you travel across the whole coast for, but if you are in Malaga City and want the night to keep moving, they matter.
Exactly. And that phrase is important. Not every event needs to be a destination. Some events are there to give shape to the evening you are already having. You have dinner in Malaga, then live music at ZZ Pub. You are in the historic center, then a late club night at Teatro. You want a more focused Latin urban night, then Cosa Nuestra is on your radar.
What else should we seed quickly?
A few more. Sophie Festival in Churiana is on the electronic radar this week with underground house and techno energy close to the airport. Sundance Sundays at Sublime Beach Club in Puerto Banús is one for the Beach Club house crowd on Sunday the 12th. Candlelight Open Air at Villa Padierna in Benahavis offers the softer classical crossover version of a summer night. And El Oceano in and Mijas Costa has poolside and dinner entertainment across the week. Useful if you want music with a more boutique hotel feel.
So the music choice this week really depends on what kind of night you want. Big beach festival, weekend beach, luxury quarry concert, Starlite, Urban Castle Park Energy, Urban Paradise, Open Air, Marbella Arena, free jazz in the park, Torremolinos, Spanish indie folk in Málaga, Guitarricadelafuente, small city nights, ZZ Pub, Teatro, Cosa Nuestra.
Exactly. And because so many of these events happen late and several cluster around Friday and Saturday, the practical advice is simple. Do not overbook yourself. Choose your anchor night, then build around it. If you are doing weekend beach, do not also pretend you are having a calm early morning the next day. If you are doing Starlite, plan the journey up and back. If you are doing Marenostrum or Marbella Arena, think about the traffic and taxis. And if you are doing a smaller city night, enjoy the fact that not everything has to be massive.
That may be the secret of this week. The big things are very big, but the smaller things may be where some listeners find their best night.
Exactly. Check malagaradio.net for event pages, links, locations, and latest details.
After the break, we move into sports and outdoors. And this week, that means doing activity the sensible July way. Water early, mountains late, indoor sport if you want air conditioning, and night trails for people who think a summer run should begin when the sun gives up.
This is the weekly diary from Málaga Radio.
Málaga Radio.
Now we move into sports and outdoors, and this week the rule is very simple. In July, active plans need timing. You do not fight the heat and hope for the best. You move around it.
Exactly. This week, the smart active choices fall into three groups. Indoor sport, where the air conditioning does some of the work, water-based activities early in the day, and mountain or trail events after the sun has dropped. That is the Costa del Sol summer logic.
So not, let's go for a big hike at 2 in the afternoon?
Definitely not. That is not adventure. That is poor planning with views.
Let's start indoors then, because that sounds wonderfully sensible.
The main indoor sports anchor this week is Málaga Premier Padel at the Palacio de Deportes Martín Carpena. It starts during our week on the 11th and 12th of July, and the tournament continues beyond that. For visitors, this is a very good option if you want sport, atmosphere, and crowd energy without standing in the sun.
And paddle really matters here now. It is not a niche thing in Spain. You see courts everywhere. People talk about it constantly, and it has that mix of speed, noise, tactics, and social energy.
Exactly. And in an arena setting, it becomes a proper spectator event. The rallies are fast, the crowd gets involved, and because it is indoors, it is also one of the most comfortable sports choices of a very hot week. So if you are in Malaga City or you follow Padel, this is worth checking.
Good for people who want sport but not sunscreen.
Yes, a rare July luxury.
Then we go completely the other way, into the mountains, but at night.
Exactly. And this is one of the most interesting outdoor patterns this week. The mountains do not disappear in July. They move into the evening. On Saturday, the 11th, there are several night trail events around the province. There is Al Jaurín a la Luz de la Luna in Al Jaurín El Grande, with hikers starting around 9:30 and runners around 10 at night. There is the Sierra Crestelina night trail in Casares, starting around 9. And there is the Caratraca night trail and hiking route, using the village and surrounding mountain landscape after dark.
That sounds beautiful. Headlamps, cooler air, villages at night, mountains instead of beach crowds.
It can be beautiful, but we should be clear, these are not casual tourist strolls. They are organized trail and hiking events. And if someone wants to participate, they need to be properly registered, physically prepared, equipped, and aware of the route conditions. But as a story about summer life here, they are very useful. They show how local sport adapts to July.
Because the timing is the whole point. If the sun is too strong, you do not cancel the mountain completely. You wait until the mountain becomes possible again.
Exactly. And these events also bring a strong local feeling. They are not just fitness challenges. They connect villages, charities, local clubs, volunteers, families, and the landscape. So if you are nearby, even watching the start or feeling the atmosphere can be interesting. But if you are thinking of taking part, do it properly.
So, worth noticing if nearby, worth joining only if prepared.
Perfect. Now, for most active visitors this week, the more realistic option is water.
That already sounds better.
Water is your friend in July, especially if you go early. One strong option is early bird canyoning in the Guadalmina River near Benahavis. That gives you a cooler, shaded, river-based adventure. Pools, rock walls, water movement, and a completely different feeling from the beach.
That is one of those activities where you still feel active, but the water is helping you survive.
Exactly. And because it is guided, visitors should book with proper operators, check the difficulty, listen to safety instructions, and be honest about their swimming ability and confidence. The early session matters because you avoid the worst heat and the biggest crowds.
And then on the eastern coast, we have Maro and Nerca.
Yes, guided kayaking and paddle surf tours around the Maro cliffs are strong options this week. That area is one of the most beautiful pieces of coastline in the province, with cliffs, clear water, coves, and marine scenery that you cannot experience properly from the road.
That is the kind of activity that gives people a real holiday memory. Not just another beach day, but we paddled under the cliffs near Nurka.
Exactly. But again, go early, book properly, and respect the setting. These are sensitive coastal and marine areas. Follow the guide, do not treat it like a party boat, and remember that non-motorized activities only work well when people respect the water and the environment.
So the active tourist rule is early water, guided properly, and do not underestimate the sun just because you are in the sea.
Correct. You can still burn on the water, sometimes more easily, because the reflection is strong and the breeze fools you. Hat, sunscreen, water, and a realistic idea of your own energy.
And we have a few more outdoor and sports ideas on the radar.
Yes. On the western side, the Copa Memorial Manuel Prado y Colón de Carvajal continues at Ayala Polo Club in Sotogrande until the 12th of July. That is a premium spectator option. Polo, open air, late afternoon social atmosphere, and a very different kind of sporting culture.
So not something every tourist automatically thinks of, but if you are around Sotogrande or the western coast, it is worth checking.
Exactly. Then in Marbella, the Puerto Banús summer sailing regattas are also on the radar. Even if you are not sailing, the marina can become a spectator point with boats, sea movement, and that polished Puerto Banús setting.
Very different from a night trail in Caratraca.
Very different, and that is the range of the week. We also have Malaga City wellness options: beach yoga, sunset yoga, paddleboarding around El Palo or El Candado, and sunset catamaran cruises from Malaga Port. Some are more sports, some are more leisure, but all fit the summer rule. Use the edges of the day, not the brutal middle.
And Real Club Mediterraneo?
Yes, the Real Club Mediterraneo, aquathlon, and swimming trophies on the 10th of July are also worth a local note. That is more club sport than big tourist event. But if you are interested in Malaga's maritime sports culture, it is another sign of how deeply the city connects sport with the sea.
Now we should give the weekend beach reminder here.
Definitely. If you are doing Weekend Beach Festival at night, do not schedule a hard outdoor activity in the afternoon before it. Do not do canyoning, a long paddle, a mountain trail, a full beach day, and then expect your body to dance until sunrise.
That sounds like something someone absolutely needs to hear before making a heroic holiday plan.
Yes, water early, rest later, festival after dark. That is the sensible version. If Weekend Beach is your big night, protect your energy.
So the sports and outdoors advice this week is really about timing.
Exactly. Paddle indoors if you want sport without heat. Night trails if you are prepared and want inland adventure after dark. Canyoning and kayaking early if you want water and nature. Polo, sailing, and wellness if you want something more social or scenic. And above all, respect July.
Because the coast gives you options, but it does not forgive bad timing.
Very true. Check malagaradio.net for event pages, links, locations, and latest details.
And after the break, we bring the whole week together. What to choose, what to skip, how not to overdo it, and why this week is really about planning around the summer rhythm.
This is the weekly diary from Malaga Radio.
Malaga Radio.
And that is this week on the Costa del Sol, a week where the coast is very much awake. Weekend Beach turning Torre del Mar into a festival city, Estepona lighting up with Feria energy, Cútar taking us into Andalusi history, Malaga museums giving us cool afternoon escapes, Ronda opening after dark, and the sea, mountains, and arenas all finding their own summer rhythm.
Exactly. And the main advice this week is simple. Do not try to do everything. Choose the version of the Costa del Sol that fits where you are staying, who you are traveling with, and how much energy you really have. If you want the biggest music story, listen to our separate Weekend Beach Festival 2026. Torre del Mar goes full volume special, then decide whether that is your night, your weekend, or something you admire from a distance.
If you want tradition, look at Estepona Feria, Cútar's Noche Nazarí, Benajarafe, Campillos, and the early signs of Virgen del Carmen along the coast. If you want culture, use the museums properly, especially in the afternoon heat, and look at Ronda, Julio Musical, the English Cemetery, Cinema Night, or Phantom at Teatro Cervantes.
If you want food, eat with the rhythm of July, market earlier, long lunch when the day gets heavy, rooftop or vineyard later. And if you are going to a festival, please do not try to survive the night on snacks, sunburn, and optimism.
And if you want activity, do it the sensible summer way. Water early, mountains late, indoor sport when the heat is too much, and rest before the big night, especially if your big night involves music until sunrise.
That is the week's pattern: morning for movement, afternoon for recovery, evening for the Costa del Sol.
And that does not mean you are missing the day. It means you are using the day properly. A long lunch is not wasted time. A museum afternoon is not hiding. A siesta is logic, not laziness.
Exactly. The Spanish are not wasting the day. They are moving the day. And once you understand that, July becomes much easier to enjoy.
For event pages images, links, locations, and latest details, check malagaradio.net. That is where you can look up the events we have mentioned, check what is close to you, and decide what is worth traveling for and what is worth a look if you are nearby.
And for daily reminders, travel notes, weather, traffic, and selected event ideas, listen to Freshly Squeezed on Malaga Radio every morning from 8 to 11. The weekly diary helps you plan the week. Freshly Squeezed helps you use the day.
And if Gibraltar is on your mind, listen for our separate Malaga Radio podcast, Gibraltar Reinvented, Beyond Border Queues and Bargains, because that story is changing too.
So enjoy this week. Pick well, plan around the heat, respect the towns you visit, check details before you travel. And remember, the best week is not the one where you did the most. It is the one where you chose the right things.
I'm Carmen.
And I'm Baptiste.
This has been the weekly diary from Malaga Radio.
What's on Costa del Sol, 6th to 12th of July.
We'll see you next week. And until then, keep your mornings useful, your afternoons gentle, and your evenings open.
This is Malaga Radio.
Malaga Radio. Malaga Radio.